I want to, I want to ask one more question. I'm sitting here kind of thinking of what my remaining questions are, and there's one that just that I keep coming back to, and that is the Depression,
Mm-hmm.
the repeal of Prohibition, and then the Depression era. Did you study? I know you studied the Prohibition era, but what happened to beer sales during the Depression after repeal? Was it flat?
Okay, well, yeah, before Prohibition, the vast majority of alcohol consumption was beer and wine, and beer dominated, completely almost. I mean, I'd say more than 50% of all alcohol sales were beer. And as I pointed out, there were breweries everywhere. With Prohibition, beer consumption almost completely collapsed. Wine consumption almost completely collapsed, except for home wine.
Homemade.
Yeah, you can make homemade wine. And then most people were turning to high-potency spirits, whiskeys and gin and things of that nature.
Because when it's done illegally, you tend to do it more potent.
Yeah, and that's what's the main contribution of my Economics of Prohibition book, is to show that you prohibit something and you make it more potent and more dangerous to consume. In the case of drugs, more addictive.
You make, for example, marijuana is illegal, so people have turned to more smaller and potent chemicals or whatever, methamphetamine.
Yeah, something that can be where you can hide a year's supply in a little tape recorder. Very dangerous, very volatile, potentially deadly.
Right.
Whereas, of course, something like smoking marijuana, you'd have to smoke a boatload of it before you hurt yourself. Now, when Prohibition was repealed, of course, the buildings were all still there, but they had to revamp everything, and so it took a little while for beer sales to get back on their feet. But they quickly got close to their previous representation in the overall American consumption patterns. Whiskeys did better after Prohibition than they did before Prohibition, because people had become used to drinking alcohol in that form, and they'd concocted all sorts of new cocktails to cover up the bad quality whiskey that was being made. So you'd mix it with something to try to, improve the flavor. So whiskey sales did relatively better, but they've continued to fall off over time. And with beer and now wine is done. Starting in the 1980s, it's done increasingly better over time as we've gotten more and more choices for wine.
Do you think that craft beer and gourmet wine is recession-proof?
I don't think anything's recession-proof. I think it's resistant to recession. It's hard to say with the economic climate today. We could be in for something very severe, but I think that they'll do better than most other businesses. Let's put it that way.
So if you were losing money in one industry, this might be an industry that might be a little safer.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I think a lot of companies, a lot of firms are going to go completely out of business. With something like beer, you'd kind of expect that the inputs into beer making would also decline in price as you go into recession. So all of the inputs that are going to go in there.
We've already noticed that with hops, by the way.
Yeah.
There was a panic a year and a half ago. Hop prices quadrupled.
Like gasoline prices, but now
people start entering into panic contracts for years to come,
mm-hmm.
and now the price is going down.
Yeah, and so all of the prices of all of those inputs, including labor, grain, hops, all of that, place to actually brew your stuff. I mean, you'll be able to rent buildings and facilities at much lower prices. So that's another thing that's going to...
Land is cheaper. A lot of people are underwater right now, though. How do you solve that problem? Because, you got land that, or real estate that's value has gone down, and people owe more than the value, and so they're unwilling to sell, and so there's kind of a seizure.
Well, it's, foreclosure. There's going to be there's a lot of things in the financial system which make it difficult to unravel foreclosed homes and things of that nature, or to sell bank-owned properties, for instance. But that's all going to work itself out eventually, and so there should be plenty of room, leasing space available for microbreweries and craft breweries and things of that nature. So the fact that the input prices are all going to come down will also provide another cushion on the supply side of the market as we.
Unfortunately, I think you've got some people locked into contracts with their hop providers. But then again, I'm not sure how they're handled. They might be renegotiating those real quick.
Yeah.
That's probably what's happening right now. I'd love to get inside the industry and find out what's going on.
That's another interview.
Well, that's all I have for you. I really appreciate your friendship, and you've come over and spoken to the Auburn Brew Club meetings before. You've come to our tailgate parties, and I hope that if we have some legislation pending next session on these big issues, especially concerning, if it can help craft brewing in Auburn, that you'll come down and speak to those guys. Well,
economic crisis gives us an opportunity to make some reforms in government, and hopefully that will be one of them.